What's wrong with it? Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Hope you're all having a super fantastic, sparkling day. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, number 1,100, and I think it's actually meant to be 70. I don't think I changed the counter on this thing. No, I did not. It's actually 1,170. So that'll be an after show repair. So how is your week going? We're at Friday. How is your week going? Are you ready to get into some family research this weekend? I know I have. I got a mastermind group meeting tomorrow, and then the rest of the weekend is all genealogy, and I am super excited because I haven't had an all genealogy weekend for a while, even though it's interrupted by mastermind, but that's okay. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to that. And sometime during the weekend, oh no, hang on, it's raining this weekend. Yeah, we've already got flood watches out. So otherwise we might go, if it eases up enough and dries out enough, we may go to the PARK for the DOG. She's not watching. She hasn't learnt those spellings yet. That's good. Sorry, I got stuff stuck in my teeth right now. I had a snack just before I came on. I probably shouldn't have done that, but saves off the hunger for a little bit. Anyway, so tonight I want to talk about tips and tricks, about some things that you can do that will help you with your research and also assist those that come behind you or collaborate with you. And those that come behind you, I'm talking about family members, like descendants as they come along and say or other family members who turn around and say, hey, we want to help with the research and stuff. So we have a few things that we kind of like to do, and it makes it easier. And you'll probably look at this list and go, I gotta do all of that. But when you get into the habit of doing it, and trust me, it makes things so much easier. It saves you a lot of time. Let me say it again. We can save you a lot of time if you follow these tips and tricks, simply because you won't be repeating everything, and because you've got everything laid out about what was there and what wasn't there and what you found and what you didn't find, it's going to make it easier for those coming along behind. They're going to go, oh, I was going to go check that. Already done. This is what they found. Okay, move on. Sometimes some people come along and go, I don't believe that. I'm going to go check it anyway. That's fine. So you have it. So over the last few days, we've been talking about, most of this month, we've been talking about different things. Like yesterday, we talked about interviews, about questions that you can ask, about some things you can use as memory joggers and things. We've shown you my mystery of my third great grandfather and some of the stuff that I've already researched, some of the stuff I haven't, some of the questions that have come out of the research that I'm doing for him. Let's see, we've also done hints and tips for finding needles in the haystack, for finding those needles. I'm very good at finding threads that lead to the needles. So if the needle is threaded, I can find them. We've talked about graveyard and cemetery records and what fun stuff you can find in those and what the difference is between a graveyard and a cemetery. We've also talked about newspapers and some of the information that you can find in there. They're real gossipy. I'm going to find you some of I'm going to actually see if I can find some gossip ones so I can share them with you on time. We've talked about vital records, which are your birth, deaths, and marriages, records like that. So today we're going to look at some of the terminology, which will help you figure out what you're doing. And we're also going to talk about some formats that, and yes, we do have some formats in the genealogy world, because there's certain ways that you write names. There's also certain ways you write dates. So we're going to look at those. And yes, it may be a little confusing at first, but I will give you a little hint and tip on that one too. Being somebody who comes from a country that does their dates very differently to the US. We do it alphabetical. Day, month, year, DMY. Alphabetical, DMY. So if you can't remember how to do a date, just think alphabetical, day, month, year. So let's start. Where should we start? this information here. Where should we start? Okay, so the first thing you're going to have to do is what are you searching for? That's the very first question, is what are you searching for? Come up with one question, just one. Because researching a family tree, just to say, oh, I'm going to research the family tree, that is a very daunting task to take on. Because let me tell you, genealogy, researching family trees and genealogy and stuff, that is like the ultimate puzzle ever. That is the ultimate puzzle ever. It will never, ever be completed. It doesn't matter how much time gets spent on it. It will never, ever be completed, because there are records out there that are missing. So you're going to have missing records. You're going to have records you can't get access to. So there's going to be missing information. There's going to be records that have been lost over time. There's going to be conflicting information that you're going to find in different records for different reasons, based on the political and situation that was going on in a country at a time, or if there was a war going on, things like that. So there's a whole bunch of different, or people just didn't record it. There are some places where before a certain different countries declared at different times that from this date forward, we are now going to be tracking all the births. So prior to that, births may not have been recorded unless they were done in like a family Bible, or if they were done at the local parish when the baby was baptized or christened. But then you have those cultures that didn't do any of that. So there's a lot of stuff out there that we may never ever have access to. And you have to remember that, and I've heard, and I got told this years ago, but on the recent, I was recently on one of the genealogy conferences I was recently on, and I had one where there was 2 back-to-back weeks. And on one of those, the presenter talked about online records. And I was the archivist. That's right. She was so cool. She was awesome. I wish I could remember her name. I've got it written in my notes. But she was the archivist, and she was telling us, and like I've known that I got this information given to me years ago. I don't remember where I read it, where I got it from, or anything else. But I've always known that, there are millions upon millions upon millions of genealogical documents out there, or records that we can use for genealogical purposes. And there's millions, there's millions and millions available online. What is online represents about 5% of all records available to us. And some of them aren't available to us, but of all records out there that you can use for genealogical purposes. Think about that. There's already millions and millions of records online, and it represents about 5% of all the records in the entire world. Think about that. And then this archivist turns around and she said, this represents 5% of all the records. She says, I actually think that number's lower. This is an archivist. And because when I read that on the screen, it came on the screen, I thought, I've known that for years. So that's validation that I did hear the right thing when I learned that information. Then she turned around and added in the words that said, I believe that number should be lower. So that just gives you an idea of how many records are out there. So when it comes to researching your family tree, how are you going to search it? Who are you going to search first? So come up with a question. It could be you don't know anything about your paternal grandfather. Okay, who is my paternal grandfather? Let's go find out. So you start asking the questions about your paternal grandfather. You ask everybody you know, what do you know about him and everything, and you start searching the records and you'll start finding information. Is the information correct? So we're going to talk about some of the different types of information that's out there that can help you determine, and ways that you can help determine if the information is correct or not. So again, anytime you form a question for your genealogical research, for your family tree research, you start off with that one thing, your one question, and trust me on this. Stick to the one question, because I have spent hours in rabbit holes that started here with my question and took me way over there. And and Brad would come in at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm a morning person, not an evening person. And as I said, are you going to come to bed? And I go, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. What time is it? And he'll go, it's 1:30. I'm like, wait, what? I went into I suddenly realized that how when you come across a roadblock, you go off and you work on something else that takes up a completely different part of the brain. and the subconscious is still working on the question. Well, my subconscious one evening, several evenings has done this, suddenly says, oh, have you tried looking here? And I'm like, oh, I got to go look at something. And I'll tell Brad, and I'll go off into the office, and I'll sit down, and I'll go research. Oh, that's what I was looking for. Yay, we found it. Woo! Or no, that wasn't what I was looking for, but it's now inspired me to go look somewhere else. So sometimes you might get the idea to go and look somewhere, and when you look there, it is not the information you were looking for, but it inspires you to go look in a different place. And I went and I started looking in this other place, and I was sort of like, oh, here's all this information. And then it was surrounded by this other information. Oh, that would fit in my tree. Oh, I wonder how all this fits into my tree. And I started getting sidetracked by all the sparkly bits on the side. And yes, there's lots of sparkles within genealogy. Those are all the little squirrels, the little blips that come along that trip you up and send you off on a different journey, down a different hole, a rabbit hole, and all that stuff. So yes, so we did get caught up in those. So because of the way when I do my research is I always have a spiral bound composition book, and I put the name of the person I am researching on the front, and only the research for that person goes into that book, and the notes and the stories and any information I can find about that person goes into that book. I will even take out like a family group sheet, a blank family group sheet, and I don't have one available to show you right now. I need to print some more off. And I write it out with my main person and with my main person at the top, either in the mother or the father slot, because the ones I have, and you can get these forms free from the National Society of Genealogy, the National Genealogical Society, from Ancestry.com. Family Tree has a whole bunch as well. So there are places you can go and you can download the forms and print them off so you can handwrite on them. So I always have the group sheet in there with either the male part filled in, or the father part filled in, or the mother part filled in for the person I'm looking for. Not they are filled in as mother or father, okay? So like for the grandfather, it would be the grandfather's name would be filled in the father's slot. Is it Friday? I can't talk properly on Fridays. And so I can keep a running track there of that. And there is a slot there where you can put his parents' information as well. So those ones I got from Ancestry, and I really like their forms. It's on one page, it's landscape, and for me, it works really well. Other people like the ones that are available on other different websites and everything else, and they use them, and whatever works as long as you're recording. So in my composition book, I've got everything that I know about this person. Then I'll start on a fresh page and put who is John William Smith, who was born blah 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 blah, died such and such, married da 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 da, and what other information can I find out about this person? So now we need to start looking. What information do we currently have? Can we verify that information by looking at birth records, death records, marriage records, social security index? And I will tell you, the social security stuff, that it can be a gold mine. Because if you have a person in your family who you suspect, and this is if they're American, other countries with their tax records may have the same thing, but I haven't gone looking in tax records for other countries. But the social security number index, it has a wealth of information. You've got the abbreviated version, which this is the name of the person, this is when they died, this is where they died, done. But then you have the claims and, what is it? Social Security. It's like claims and applications and claims. And it's got information in there. It's got who the parents were. So not only does it have their full name, it has who the parents were. Then if at any point in time they were known as something different, like if they did a name change, it's written on this record. So you can go in there and you can see the name changes. If they've changed it, like especially like if a woman gets married and changes her name, it's showing on there. If a guy decides to change his name, he may have been known, for example, as John Robert, but everybody called him Robert, and it says, name changed to Robert John Smith instead of John Robert. He was born John Robert Smith, and on the Social Security thing, he decided he was going to go by Bob, and he keeps signing everything with Robert. either dropping the John portion or switching the names around, and it's shown on the records. If somebody uses their middle name rather than their first name, it shows on these records. If they completely change their name, if they decide that they don't want to be a Smith anymore, they want to be a Jones instead, it shows it on the records. And then it's got who their parents were, it's got the father's name, and in most cases it will have the mother's maiden name. And the ones that I have seen, it has the mother's maiden name. What is a maiden name? Very good question. I'm glad you asked that. So the maiden name is the birth name of the wife. So her maiden name is the surname or the last name that she was born with. There could have been other reasons that names were changed over time. It could be that the father left, she was brought up by a stepfather and she decided to use his name, so that would be on that record as well. But if she gets married and changes her name, then that becomes her married name, and there is a way that we record that as well. But whenever you put anybody into a family tree, especially a woman, it's always under their maiden name. So you can show in the program and show on the sheet who they got married to, but you always record the woman with their birth name. Yes, which has come in very handy since my great-grandmother was born with one name, and at the age of about 11, she was adopted by another family, and so her last name changed. On some records, her full birth name is in there, like her birth last name is in there as a middle name. In other records, it is not. And what's really interesting is I have a really good detailed family tree for the adopted family that adopted her, because there is rumors that it was an in-family adoption. I have not found a connection with the family yet. So I'm thinking that one is probably false. But that's one of the questions that I have to answer at times. And if you were watching, was it last night or the night before, where I showed my second great-grandfather and my third great-grandfather, and in the notes on Ancestry, I had questions written in there. Each of those questions is a research question. And when I go in there, I will tackle one of those questions. So looking for that information. As you search, keep track. I always keep track I started keeping track. I got very confused at the beginning. Mind you, this was, we're talking 20 years ago, that I was just sort of like going everywhere and doing everything. And I was repeating over and over and over and over and over again, going to different sites, going, well, that's the same. Have I already been to here? Oh, damn it, I've done it again. And I forgot. I learned over time to keep a research log. And what a research log, it has the date you put, and you can use whatever. You can use a preset form. You can set up an Excel spreadsheet with all of this. You can do it as a Word document with tables. You can just do it as a Word document. You can keep this record however. You can keep it with pen and paper. There's forms out there called research logs. You can do it however you want to do it. Basic information on a research log is date. The date that you searched, where you searched. So if you went to a physical location, you've got the name of the location and the repository. We call them repositories. If it was a library you went to, or a maybe in a museum, it was the Library of Congress, National Archives. It was the local. Archives. The local records place. It could have been the county office. It could have been a website. Wherever you go. So the date that you visited either online or in person, the name of the place that you went to, online or in person, the web address if it's online. This is where electronic helping comes in handy. And then what records you searched and what your findings were. Because you could be there and, I found 7 John Smiths who were born around that date, in that same location, all had different. These are the mothers of the 7 different ones, because at that point you don't know who the mother is, who was the father that was listed. You don't know who the father is at the moment. You just know you're just working with John Smith. Trust me on this. I would have saved myself a ton of time had I done this years ago when I was searching through the 183 John Eakins that was born in a 5-year period in a particular place in England. I went through 183 John Eakins to find the one that fitted in my tree. Get that sinking. Do you know how much time I would have saved myself had I written down everyone if I kept a track of the dates and times, the places that I went to for every single one, because I'm sure out of those 183, I counted the 183, but I'm pretty sure that some of those may have been duplicates because I wasn't keeping a log at the time. Yes. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way. After then, I keep logs. I went on this date, I went to this particular site, I looked up these records, this is the information I found. Is it related, not related, or requires further investigation? And that's where different colored highlighters come in, different colored pens come in, because then I can, put as a question, have a certain color for needs further investigation. Didn't find what I was looking for, green for gold. We got it. Things like that. So, and how reliable is the information that you've been looking at? Is it a site? If you're online, is it just some random site somewhere, or is it the actual county record site? Is it the actual, like if you go familysearch.org, that's another big site for the family library that's in Salt Lake City, run by the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So you have those records as well. Or are you looking at some little site somewhere in the middle of nowhere that you have no clue where they got their information from? Now, Cindy's list is a good place to go to because she has a lot of different things. Also, too, the record that you're looking at, is it an original record, a derivative, or an authored narrative? And you're probably going to go, wait, what? Yeah. When I first heard those terms, I was like, hang on. I know we have different types of records. I just didn't know they had names at the time. So an original record is one that exists as it was originally recorded. So it could be an oral history, it could be a handwritten will, it could be a baptismal record in the church records, a diary, photographs, originals. A derivative is created by reproducing some or all of the content contained in the original record. So it could be somebody may have gone in and you've got the transcription of a record. So you're looking for abstracts, extracts, transcriptions, indexes. Indexes are very interesting because there's a lot of indexes come over the years and stuff where they've taken the different volumes, and rather with them sitting down and looking through every volume, they've created an index so they know exactly which volume to go to, which page to go, and which page to go to. And that was information taken off the original records, because they may have the certificate number there, they'll have the person's name there, the date of the event, and that sort of thing. And then you have authored narratives, which represent third source classification, and it's created from information gathered from a variety of sources, the original, the derivatives. So keep an eye out for those. Then we also ask the question, is this primary information, secondary information, or indeterminable? Primary information is generally provided close to the time of the event by someone with first-hand knowledge. So if you think of, if you witnessed the birth and you turn around and said, well, I looked at my watch and it said it was 11:42. Was that AM or PM? I'm not sure. We were there a very long time. No, because the doctor also would have called out what somebody in the room, one of the medical staff in the room would have written down what the time was. But you were, if you were there, you can say, hey, this baby was born on such and such a date. I was there. I was in person, and give your first-hand account. So you are primary information because you witnessed it. So the birth date recorded on a certificate is written by the doctor who did the delivery, or it could have been the midwife who did the delivery. Whoever did the delivery fills in the birth certificate. With a death certificate, though, the birth information becomes second-hand knowledge. And you're probably going, why? Because the person recording on a death certificate asks whoever is reporting the death, because somebody goes in and says this person died, and they go and give all the information of the birth date, where they were living, who their parents are. That is all secondhand knowledge, except the death. They may have been present for the death. Like when I had to do it for Brad, we had to sit there and they had it all written out based on the information they were given. I had to verify the information was correct. And I even had to take his passport in so they could compare it with his face and the information that was on the document. So secondary information is provided by someone with secondhand knowledge. So, for example, I was not present at his birth, but I provided his birth information of when and where he was born and who his parents were. That is secondhand knowledge on a death certificate, which has been dated and signed and everything by the doctor at the time. It was the time of death on there, the cause of death, and the place of death, which is they know that they were there. And then you have indeterminate, where it's unclear as where the source of the information. You have the information, you just don't know where it came from. So think about it. So that's also things to think about as well. Let's see what else have we got in here. Oh, evidence. I love evidence. So with evidence within the family tree, we have direct evidence, indirect evidence, and negative evidence. And so the evidence either directly, indirectly, or does not answer your question. So, for example, if you're trying to find the birth record for, we'll go back to our Robert John Smith. If you're trying to find his birth record and you find a birth certificate, does it answer the question of where and when he was born? Yes, it's written right there on the certificate. So that would be direct evidence because it directly answers that question. If it is indirect, it needs to be combined with other sorts of information to help prove the question. Like it might provide the information, but you're not sure if it's correct because you don't know who provided the information. And when it comes to things like census records and you see the ages and you go, oh, it says that they were 3. They would have been 5 by that point. Yeah, but who provided the information? Was it somebody in the actual family that provided the information? Or was it a neighbor because the family was out? Yes, they used to take information from neighbors. Or was it a child that answered the door and said, and I had one case, and I am sure the kids were answering the questions on this one, because when it came to the age of the parents, it had the parents listed at their ages like about 10 to 15 years older than what they actually were. The family definitely was correct. The family that we found in the census, it was definitely correct. We had the census from 10 years prior. In fact, this one was in New York. So in New York, you also have census. The New York State did censuses on the years ending in 5. So we were able to track that, yes, this was the right house and the right household because we went back and we had a look at the census that was taken 10 years beforehand, the census that was taken 5 years beforehand, and then we went to the census 5 years after that one and the one 10 years after that one to get the information from those 4 censuses to determine that this was the correct census, that the correct family that we were looking at on the census. And I'm pretty sure that a parent would not age themselves 10 to 15 years. So I have a feeling it might have been the kids involved in that one and somehow as to how old the parents were. Why the parents didn't answer the question, I don't know, but I cannot see the parents since in the years prior and the years following, the information was perfect. It was correct. It was correct at the time the census was taken. But this one was a little off. Like the kids were a little older. The parents were well older. Like I said, 10 to 15 years older. The kids were all 2 to 3 years older. And when they were asked where their grandparents were born, they were like, and so it was just written in there unknown. And yet on previous census and ones after that, that information was filled in. So you had this one oddball census report, and it's sort of like, what the heck? And it's probably because one of the parents did not give that information. It was either one of the children, or it may have even been a neighbor that gave the enumerator the information. So where is the source of the information coming from? In that case, the census, even though it was taken at the time, did it answer the question on the birth date? Not really, because that one was out of whack. But by using the other census on either side of that particular one, we were able to determine what the birth year was. So it indirectly answered the question without actually answering it. Hope that makes sense. And then you get those that where it is not the family, it didn't have the year that they were born in there, and so that would be negative response. And that's where you can use like highlighters, where I highlight and go, yes, this information is good. This is like direct information, or it's primary information. I have different colors to relate that, so I know, so I can go through and follow all the green. If I get conflicting information, you take a piece of paper, you take a spreadsheet, you take something where you can make columns, and you go, okay, on this particular record for this John Roberts, it shows this information. I have another record, the same type of record, that has another John Roberts on there, and it's got this information, and you put them into columns next door to each other. And then you start filling in other information that you know, and which ones, and one of them will start lining up. They'll start lining up together as to which one is the correct record that you need to be looking at. So the other two would be negative records. So that's that for today. Oh, I'm going to quickly go over. What was I going to quickly go over? Oh, yes. So research log important, because it will help you backtracking and researching sites all over again and again and again and again. And we've talked about the names and how the names with the and when you are handwriting, if you are handwriting out the names, always put the last name in capitals, because it differentiates it. Because one of the naming traditions that are out there is the firstborn son, or one of his middle names, his only middle name, or one of his middle names, could be the mother's maiden name, or it could be her mother's name, or it could be the grandmother. It quite often it is the maiden name of a female. So to differentiate between which are names, as in first name, middle names, and which is the last name, when you are handwriting, always put it in capitals. If you're using software, now on Ancestry, and they kind of annoyed me when they took this off. They used to have, like, way back in the Wayback Machine when they first started, they had a little one of those setting boxes where you could turn around and say how you wanted things formatted, and et cetera, et cetera. And one of them was that you always want the last name was to always be in capitals. So when you now look at my tree, half the stuff's in capitals, half the stuff's not, because at some point they took that option away. I wish they would bring it back, because it makes it so much easier for me to find people. But usually when you're looking at the little picture on the tree, it will have their first name and maybe the initials, and then it has the last name on the bottom line, which makes it easy just to run through the bottom line of all of those. So that's one thing. So when you are handwriting, put them in the last names in capital letters, so you know what the last name is, so you don't get it confused with a last name that is now a middle name for a child, which happens. It happens. When you are recording where, always start with the smallest and work out. So they were christened in this church, which was part of this either parish or town or city that was in this county regional district, that was part of this state or territorial province, part of this country. So you start with the smallest detail that you know, and you work your way out. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, start with the smallest one first. So if you're putting down the church, here is the church. It was part of the city, town, village, whatever the little metro area is. It could have been part of a city. If it was in a suburb of a major city, then put the suburb down. And then you can go, for example, if you're working with LA, we did this a lot in LA. You would have they were born in this hospital in Los Angeles County, in California, United States. So you work from the smallest known place out to the larger place. So yes, that makes it easy to help it be found. Another one in genealogy, as I mentioned earlier, when we do dates, we do them alphabetically, as in day, month, year. Day, month, year. In the United States, it is like the only country in the world that does month, day, year. If you abbreviate something like, so we would write in the thing there, 9th of July, 1866. And we would write the number 9, July in full, 1866. There is no question about what that date is, correct? We agree on that point. All right. In America, if you do the numbers only and you put like, let's say you guys do month day. So if I was to write it abbreviated with numbers only, I would put it as 9/7/1866. Now, an American will come along and look at that and go, 9/7. Oh, it's September the 7th. No. See where the confusion comes in? So the standard in genealogy, some people will put month, day, and write the month out in full. That's okay, but the preferred method in genealogy is day, D, month, M, year. Why? Alphabetical order. Alphabetical order. Day, month, year. Day, month, year. So if you remember day, month, year, and you write the month in full. So even I've been in the States now almost 26 years. I still, to this day, write out the month. Even if they have those little slanty thingies there for you to put month, day, year, and they have like underneath month, I write out the month. Even though there's a little tiny space. I will put the first 3 letters in there as long as they know that, to me, because if I was going to write 9th of July, or the July 9th, I would put 9/7. Whereas everybody else in America will go 7/9. So to help avoid confusion, write out the month. That's the biggest one. Write it out in full. And I know at times it is a pain in the butt, but trust me, it will save a ton of confusion. There are times I'm coming across information on other people's trees, and this is why I do not merge other trees with my tree. And I go and I have a look at their trees, because they may have something in there that might trigger a place for me to look for something else. And the number of times I see a number / the year, and especially if the numbers are all 12 or less, it's very confusing. I'm sort of like, well, were they born in July or were they born in September? Okay, so just to avoid confusion, day, month, year. Day, month, year, alphabetically, DMY. Day, month, year, DMY. And written in full month. Although Ancestry now, when you start typing in January, will come up and go, oh, we could put 3rd Jan. It's like, no, I like it written. Personally, I like it written in full. I want to see January. I want to see February. I don't want to see June. I don't want to see Jan or Feb or Mar. I want it written in full. So I always overwrite that piece. And that's another one that they took away too, where you could have abbreviated the months. I want the months written in full. It's just my personal preference on that. But as far as the date format goes, when you start typing it in, it will come up, the little box comes up and says, hey, we can make it 9 Jan 1840, and you just click on the button and it does it. Once you've typed it in, it will correctly format it for you that way. But if you start putting the slashes in, it's a little confusing. So on that note, I'm out of here for the day. We'll come back with some more hints and tips later on in the month for you, because we've got a whole month of family history. And Zeffie's already over here because she knows I'm winding up. She wants to go for her walk, which is fine. I love her. We'll take her for a nice long walk tonight. So go out and have a super fantastic sparkling day. If you have any questions regarding this, and I think I have it in here. I may not have it on the list down there. If you have any questions or anything, just private message me. Or if you want to grab your free copy of 100 interview questions, the link is in the description below, along with a free copy of Family Tree Decoder, which is a really cool little ebook. And after those 2 options, there is an option after you fill that form in to actually set up an appointment with a discovery call with me. So if you want to go and do a discovery call to help, and when the discovery call, we determine whether you want to do the research yourself or whether you want us to do the research. And either way, it doesn't matter. It's whatever your preference is. And we'll talk about rates and all of that sort of stuff as well if you want to continue going further. But happy to chat with you, happy to talk with you about your tree, maybe give you an idea or two of where to go next. But anyway, have a super fantastic sparkling evening, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Pacific. Hey, Cornera. All right.